please stand and join the pledge? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Now calling this regular school board meeting for Independent School District 544 to order. First item of business is to establish our quorum.
Melissa Hermes.
Present.
Stephen Diggesaw. Here. Lane Danielson here. Natalie Knudsen.
Here.
Matt Lemke. Here. Emily Cole.
Here. All right, thank you. Is there a motion to approve the agenda?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion on the agenda? All in favor of approval, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say nay. The agenda is approved. We have one acknowledgement, and that is to thank Dean Gutzmer for a donation of books, bags, etc. to Mrs. Rehnquist's classroom at Cleveland School for their end of the year student auction. And a thank you to the Noon Kiwanis of Fergus Falls for their $200 donation to the Otter Angel account. We'll move on to reports. I'll begin with my additional responsibility reports, and that includes negotiations, which is, there is no update on that since the last time I spoke. We are, as it stands, we're waiting for things to settle out from the legislature and wait for the weather to change a little bit, and then we'll start. It's just too nice right now. Special Ed Co-op, we have not had a meeting since the last time we reported on that. That meeting will be today at noon. And as far as Region 1 board responsibilities, the meeting last month was just an update on the usual business with nothing outstanding, not noteworthy. So very little to report from me. We'll move on to Melissa Hermes.
The Curriculum Review Committee has not met since the last time I reported, and they won't meet again until October. And then for legislative, I guess the big news would be that the legislature did go ahead and pass a $19 billion bill that would allow school districts to get a 2% increase each of the next 2 years. That'd be the big news.
Mm-hmm. All right. Any questions for Ms. Hermes? All right, thank you. Natalie?
The policy committee has not met, but we are going to be reviewing some policies that need to be tidied up before the next school year. And then the wellness committee also has not met, but one thing that the school is involved in a little bit is just kind of looking at the development of the outdoor space around the school and providing some more opportunities to be active and make it a little more cohesive. So.
Okay. Any questions for Ms. Knudsen? Lane Danielson?
Nothing on the meet and confer regarding the buildings and grounds. The playground, everyone can see if you drive by down on the north side of the school, is coming along very nicely. I think we're just at the point we're waiting for the matting, and we'll have that finished up. And then regarding the shed, I think Mark's maybe still working on a few minor cuts or meeting with the contractors there, but that's on schedule and ready to go as well. And then for 544 Foundation, we met last Thursday, and new members are up to 419 from 407, so coming along very nicely there. Regarding the classroom wish list, they had 76 requests from staff for the fall now, so they'll be going through those and hopefully being able to accommodate a lot of those. This was May 23rd, I believe. They had a staff retirement luncheon or for past staff, and they had about 30 teachers and different staff attend that. So it was a nice little luncheon they had for them. And then the last thing coming up, July 21st, again, is the golf tournament, and that'll be on a Friday. They're still looking for golfers. So anyone out there looking to come out and swing away and have some fun, why you can contact out at the golf course and get hold of Tony Renz, or either Chad Swanson out at the golf course also. So that's about it for my reports.
All right. Any questions for Mr. Danielson? Steve Biggessa?
Staff development did not meet. And if I remember right, Jerry, they're meeting in July.
They won't meet until school starts again, so they have, let's see, Google Summit and some things, so they've approved a few things over the summer, but they'll meet when school starts again.
Okay. I do know they used up every dollar of the budget, which is what we're hoping for, so it's just nice to see teachers taking ownership in their development. So that's about it for me.
All right. Any questions for Mr. Biggessa? Matt, thank you.
Minnesota High School League met June 5th. They talked about that part of the tax bill provisions was related to the Minnesota High School League, and that was for their sales tax exemption that they've been trying to get through. So now that it's approved, they now have that exemption that they were looking for. They also talked some on an RAC in the Daily Journal too about the looking at instant replay for some of the games and stuff, and I think they're working out the logistics of that, and just wanting to get it right in the calls, but knowing that they only have 4 cameras at Minnesota High School League, so it's a little bit different. It's just true on, and so it'll be interesting how that all plays out. They also did have some advisory committees that did approve some recommendations, and I will have them in July because they didn't put in their notes what they approved. They just said they approved them. So hopefully we'll have that in July's report for you. One of the things that the league has been a big component for is Why We Play, and part of what they're going to be sponsoring with the 2017 Prep Bowl is a recognition event, and that they're going to help sponsor also with the Super Bowl, part of that. So they're kind of going together on that during the Prep Bowl. And their next meeting won't be until August 8th. For the Lakes Country Service Co-op, one of the things that they are working on that is coming up is looking at doing more of a pooling, maybe going to a statewide pooling of, and then have regional-based pricing, but going to more of a state plan for the co-ops to be more competitive. They just feel that it's going that way, and they need to be more proactive than trying to react always. And so they're going to be looking at doing something in the near future on that. And the rest of it was just normally business. They are working on, again, the level 4, working with that and hiring on staff and doing that things an administrator. And it looks like they're right on task on that part of it, and nailing down sites, or having sites, I shouldn't say nail down, having sites for where they're going to be having these. So that looks like they'll be ready to go this fall too. So, and that's all I have to report.
There was some discussion of maybe having a difficult time finding staff for the level 4 program. How's that coming?
That's gone good. Overall, they have everybody in place. I think they were doing, the one they did not yet is Moorhead. But they felt that probably will be the easiest because of location. And just with being within the colleges and stuff like that, they felt they would be able to find an educator for that, so.
All right, thank you. Superintendent next.
Yes, I have quite a few different items here. Following up on legislative session, we got the 2 and 2, but there's also in the tax bill, there's an ag to school component. And what that means is on bonds, any building bond, the farmers get a 40% tax break, and it doesn't affect the school district because the state funds the dollars that aren't paid by the farmers. So this is all about passing bond referendums in rural areas because it's been very, very difficult. Only 25% passed this spring, and usually it's over 50%. So it's been very difficult to do that. So that's one piece. Another acknowledgement is Nate Longton and Aaron Shellstead are both going to the boys state golf tournament. They start playing, I believe it's tomorrow and Wednesday they are playing. We had an excellent graduation ceremony. It just was one of the finest ones we had. Compliment Dean Bonke and all his staff that worked through it. It was just really, really well done. The move at the end of the year, Our teachers worked very, very hard. They were moving tables, desks, chairs, you name it. They did a great, great job. Now it's just a matter of our custodians need to clean some rooms, and then the shuffle will continue. We have Elliott transfer. They'll be here hopefully the end of this week. Is that correct?
They're here in 5 minutes.
Oh, they're here at the beginning of this week, and they will be moving from building to building. So we internal moves, a lot of them were done here ourselves, but Elliott Transfer will be moving from mainly from Cleveland. Following up Minnesota State High School League, why we played, Derek Abrahams is part of a study, and they are doing a curriculum. So our head coaches will be participating in a curriculum about character building. So it's not just coaching. Very few of our kids go on to college, to be honest. It's all about participation, leadership, character building. So they'll be working with that. So it's great to see that Derek is in there. And then we had 14 of our new teachers in on June 5th. Great day. So we were able to talk to them about just lots of things about our district, and they were able to do some paperwork, the HR, personnel type stuff, do that, and then they met their mentors and were able to get their curriculum. So a really good start. We have the remaining, most of the remaining ones will be coming here on Thursday, so that's been good. Mark, I'm going to call on you for a second on electrical update, carpet, any other thing for buildings and grounds that you want to add?
Sure, the electrical project is proceeding along. We're looking at probably the 3rd week in July of making the switch over. We were hoping to make that a relatively quick and transfer from the old transformers to the new ones, but looks like it may take several days for that to happen. So we're still trying to work on that and trying to shrink that timeline down a little bit. In terms of the carpeting, did get an installer to come in. The carpet installers are pretty busy this time of year, and but we're hoping to get a few classrooms done here maybe in August, and then with some luck maybe MEA and Christmas break finished up.
That's it?
Yep.
All right, thank you very much. We'll move on to our general consent items. For consideration of approval under this category are the minutes from our May 22nd school board meeting, and then the bills and treasurer's report. So Natalie, what do we have there?
Nothing really out of the ordinary this month. However, our balance is higher than it has been in quite some time, I hear. So we're at $9.1 million in the bank, and so we're sitting really well. Things are good.
All right. And then we have some personnel.
We do have a few things. Marie Fox is retiring as a special education professional, paraprofessional. And then we also have 2 staffers. Jen Bodie is a secretary here in the district office. Front receptionist is resigning. Drew Smith, special education para, is resigning. We hired Rebecca Brown, paraeducator at ALC. And then in finalizing some of the hires, Becky Greenell is going from half-time, and Deb Strage going from .5 to full-time. And Sally Desperate, we had put her on leave. Ann Skoy has now declined the position, or the 1 hour that we offered to her. And from IQ, she was going to be in the building here. She declined that, so now Sally is increasing back to full-time. So it's just a situation there. So recommend approval of those items.
All right. Is there a motion to approve the general consent items?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion on these items? All in favor of approval, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say nay. All right, that is approved. And for new business, we'll start with the resolution on the retirement of Marie Fox. Whereas Marie began her employment with Fergus Falls Public Schools in November 2001, and whereas Marie has been a valued employee with the Fergus Falls Public Schools for the last 16 years, and whereas Marie has done an excellent job as a special ed paraprofessional in the district, and now therefore be it resolved by the Fergus Falls School Board to thank Marie Fox for her 16 years of dedicated service to Fergus Falls Public Schools. Will someone offer that resolution and move for its adoption?
I'll offer the resolution, move for its adoption.
All right, is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion? Clerk, will you please take roll?
Matt Lemke,
Yes.
Melanie Cole,
Yes?
Natalie Knudsen,
Yes.
Blaine Danielson, yes. Stephen Biggessa,
Yes.
Melissa Hermes,
Yes.
resolution passes.
All right, thank you. The next item we're looking for is a change on a position, non-affiliated Kennedy Secondary School ISS bus noon hour supervisor position, changing that to a para-educator position. Changes the grade level on that, and so will someone make that motion to change the position?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
All right, and then Elaine, you want to go through a little bit of explanation on it?
Sure. Our non-affiliated positions, generally speaking, are 1 to 2 hour, noon hour components, staff members. This position keeps growing and growing to actually a 8-hour position day, or 8 hours a day position. So therefore, we just need to reclassify it into a proper area, and a paraeducator would be the proper area for it to be reclassified in, since it's no longer this 1 to 2 hour position. So.
All right, thank you. Any questions? All in favor of the change of this classification of this position, say aye. Aye. Opposed, say no. All right, that is approved, and we'll move on to talk about the, first entertain a motion, and then we'll have a little bit more information too about the changes to the student parent handbook for Fergus Falls Public Schools and also for IQ Academy. And so is there a motion to adopt the changes?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
All right, thank you. And before we vote then, we'll look for Shane.
Yeah, Shane will be right back, and Dean, you want to come on over too? And we can just go through some of the minor changes. Probably the biggest one that we want to talk about is the excused absences working there. But I guess there was an explanation put in the Friday report from Shane, and we talked about unexcused absences, minor language, makeup work. It was some adding things, P excuses, changed trimester to quarter semesters, backpacks, senior portraits, being able to take a picture with the regular photography, just so they can have a more formal picture rather than a snapshot. Electronic devices, we don't want kids live streaming, so you're trying to keep up with the technology, lots of different things. Detention, some nuisance, the fidget spinners are the biggest ones, so different things. So those are some of the things that Mr. Tilkey and Mr. Mankey have cleaned up, but probably we'll just concentrate on the excused absence policy, and Mr. Tilkey's are right here, ready to go.
Well, first of all, we've been talking about, attendance has been a goal of the school district since I've been here, trying to find ways to make sure that the kids that are attending our schools are attending at a 95% or higher rate. And so, just every time, it's a revolving door based on when you find a way to seek a solution, a new type of issue comes up. And one of the issues that we've come to recognize is that with all the varied schedules that our students do have, it does create opportunities during their school day to maybe find it convenient to miss a period 4 class because they maybe have a college experience class period 3 and a mentorship class or something period 5. So why come back to the building for period 4? And cell phones make it very easy to connect with a parent. Please call and excuse me for just 1 or more periods. And now we've got kind of a trickle effect of really the burden is falling back on our teachers. And so I looked at a way with the other assistant principals and Mr. Mankey to try to wordsmith it in our handbook to clarify more specifically what we're going to ask of our students and parents in relationship to excusing absences, especially at the rate that we've seen it happening. We want to try to limit that without putting too much stress on families that do have specific reasons or rationale. It's more the ones that really don't have a specific reason. It used to be that our attendance secretary at the high school would get anywhere from 18 to 40 calls in a day, and she could ask why you're not gonna be here. Parents would give a decent reason, and then it would go in the book. Now, the volume of absences is so high, she just tries to keep up with writing the ones down that did call, and then try to call the ones that didn't. So I got a couple just numbers for you. We have about just over 600 and some kids in our high school, and I shared some data last night with some of the administrators, but I went back because I didn't see it yet. I just had it from Sarah Campa, from our truancy intervention specialist. And we had 592 of those students out of our 640 miss at least 10 class periods. So that was a lot. But then that wasn't really the specific data that I asked her for, so that's what I was busily working on this morning, because it was in my office on my desk where she left it Friday and I hadn't picked it up. 296 of those students missed 10 or more class periods out of one class, which is really excessive. When you start talking to a teacher who sees those students on average about 80 days in a semester, to miss 10 or more, they're missing 12 to 25 to 30% of that class. And if it's excused, that really falls back on the teacher then to find ways to make sure that that student is staying on track. And the kids have come very good with their technology of looking at blogs online, getting notes electronically, whatever electronic homework the teachers have provided the kids just grab, and they really want it to be like a college experience. They're going to their classes maybe 3 or 4 days a week here, even though it's a 5-day-a-week class. And so I'm starting to hear it from teachers, how can we remedy this problem? And so I did 2 different things. First of all, we rewrote the policy just to kind of fit with the teachers, and we had talked about where after 10 absences in a class period, any class period of the day, not 10 total, so, because one day, if a student misses 1 day excused, that's 7 class periods if they have a full schedule. But if they miss period 3, for example, 10 or more times, we would start to get very specific about why is your child missing. And if they can't provide us with that documentation, we've had this right forever, and 10 has always been our magic number. We've just never put it in writing because there are so many variables out there. But right now the variables, they're kind of playing against us because a parent knows to say certain terminology on a voicemail that doesn't really require us to call back. Now we can ask for more verification in writing, whether it's an orthodontist appointment or eye appointment or whatever with the medical doctor or things like that, that would allow us as a school to say, no, your parent has provided an excuse beyond 10 in that class period, so we're not going to provide a consequence, like disciplinary. We're not going to say you're unexcused and you have detention, because if a student skips a class and they're unexcused, it's a detention plus they don't get to make up for work. If their parent provides an excuse, we never assign a consequence, but we'd like to start to have those class periods attended hold a little more weight without making teachers assign tedious, busy work that they then have to create and or possibly correct. They just say, we just want our kids in class. So what that would allow is if a student walks the hall period 5, which they will do, and they realize that they have a test period 6, they'll call their parent and say, you know what, excuse me, from period 6, I forgot to study. That gives that student now another day or 2 to study for that test that is really not appropriate. So if it's beyond the 10, the teacher can say, you know what, it's more than 10 in my class. There's no doctor's note or anything like that from the office. It's still marked as an excused, but not school excused. You can take the test, but you're only going to get 70% credit for it. And on an absence 12, it might be 60% credit for whatever late or missing work is from that absence that's beyond excessive. And we have a lot of talking to do with our teachers about this, but I have been meeting with small cohorts of teachers from math and social studies specifically, science on the side, not as much with English because their homework is a little different, more long-term type of writing papers and things like that. But but then I got the email forwarded to me from Matt about what are other schools doing. So I took some time Friday afternoon into the weekend just to pull up 3 school districts of similar or larger size, and it's very similar to what we have in some capacities. They have more specific dates in relationship to consecutive days. If a student misses 3 consecutive days out of any class, it's no longer excused type of deal, where ours could be, miss a day here for a day, miss a day here for a day. So I did rewrite it a little bit for another alternative option to look at, but I still left the 10 in there as kind of the baseline for any specific class period, because when I talked to Mrs. Talley, she's one of the math teachers that was on the small group that I was working with, she had some pretty interesting data about students that had missed her class 10 or more times versus that had missed 10 or less times, and students of similar, academic aptitude, and how their grade varies based on those absences, and how the success in her classroom is greatly decreased once they hit that, 8 to 10 or more absences. So what it does do is allow students, A, to still be gone for school activities because they are not counted in this policy whatsoever, and also students that do really have some significant needs that require them to miss school, they don't have problems providing that documentation. We do have parents that kind of run us through the cycle a little bit because, they're working with their kids, or they're working with their medical support practitioners, and sometimes have a delay in getting some of those things to us, but if they have it and have a verified reason, they can usually get it to us. So that's the longer story than maybe you wanted to hear, but I'd love to entertain a discussion or questions that you have time for here, to try to clarify what we want to do with this policy so we can be upfront with our parents going into the fall about what changes they may or may not expect. And on the front end, I've already requested from Mr. Monkey a freshman orientation night during open house to start with our freshmen. We don't see these problems as significantly at middle school and elementary because the kids are more parent dependent. So the parents won't, accept a call and come pick them up from school, type of deal. But in high school, they're more mobile. Either they have a car or their friend has a car. But we talked to the freshman parents and students that were able to come during open house. And then we would do another one for 9 through 12, 10 through 12, whatever we felt is appropriate during parent conferences. Since they are earlier this year, we would hit the majority of the kids before they hit the 10 and their parents, so that they know what our expectations are and just what they would have to provide. And in the grand scheme of things, if, we talked about this in great detail. What are we preparing these kids for as they go on to college or the workforce? I don't know of many jobs where, I think the student contact days are 173. Right now, this policy would allow for them to miss 20 days of that without really having to do anything other than call in and provide an excuse. And I've never had a job that's given me 20 sick days, and I work more than 173 days a year. So that's, one of the things that we've talked about. And we know there are extenuating circumstances out there, vacations, mission trips, things like that. And all we're asking the parents to do in those cases is communicate with us up front, because then we can provide the work before they go or have a plan for when they come back. But all those layers into it just open up communication and help us to be more proactive versus reactive.
I'll just add in one thing, that the reason we're doing this right now, this is an annual meeting that we do this right now because we have to prepare for our fall newsletters and our handbooks, and we do all the copying of all these in-house. We don't send it out, so that's why we're meeting, and we need to have, answers pretty quick here so we can make sure we copy. Dean, go ahead, sir.
Yeah, I think we're just seeing some trends, here especially in the high school education, with all the blended options that are out there, that we already have so many situations where students are not in school or in a particular, class period. They have opportunity for online classes. College in the high school gets some additional time off, PSEO options. So it becomes a little bit of battling a culture with which we don't have very many juniors and seniors that have that traditional 1 through 7. So then all of a sudden, if I don't have a schedule like that, I'm gonna find a way to make a schedule like that. And yet they aren't exercising any of these good options. They're just having a parent call them in for a convenience. And we find these students in school. Mm-hmm. So they've been excused from that particular class, but they're sitting somewhere else here in school. It does become difficult for us to monitor that because there's so many students that legitimately are here in specific work areas and they're doing what they're supposed to be doing. So it just kind of compounds the problem. I took a look at my own son this just based upon kind of this discussion. And in the second semester, he missed 27 days of at least partial day or part of a period. Now 26 out of those 27 were for activities. So none of that would have counted against this policy. there was one excused absence in there in the whole second semester. But you can just, now if you put that on top of being excused for partial reasons, when you really could have maybe made it to that class, that's quite a burden on the student and the teacher to try to make up that kind of time frame. So, you know, like Mr. Tilke mentioned, we're not gonna surprise anybody with this. We've already set up a 9th grade meeting. We're gonna talk to our high school students. We're gonna put flyers together. We're gonna send this out. But we're gonna try to change a culture here with which sends these students back to class. And yes, we have electronic options for the classroom that are absolutely fantastic, but it doesn't get the student the same experience as if sitting in there. And not every class is podcast. You know, that's just a few classes that we have that have gone to that, you know, total environment. So there's tons of reasons to be in class and to gain, you know, additional information and learning within there. And we've got to change the culture here.
One of the things I like about the suggested change is that under our current truancy policy, if a parent excuses a child, then it doesn't hit the radar. So, for example, in my other life, I have a student that missed 45 mornings excused out of the whole year. And it didn't hit the radar for truancy because of that. And so, so having the excuse from the parents, sometimes they more or less abuse the privilege of excusing their child and to the child's own detriment. So I like that, that we are taking a stand that gets the kids in school. So. Other,
Can I ask a question?
Yeah.
I think that's great, the idea to have a freshman orientation where you bring that up, but is it realistic to think that you're going to be able to talk to every 10th through 12th grade parent at conferences?
We're gonna do the same thing where we'd be in the auditorium where it's
A convocation?
Yeah.
Okay.
so, and again, they won't be required to attend, and we're hoping two things: A, that many will choose to attend, but then also 9 through 12, it will increase some conference attendance because very similar to our student attendance, that's never, you know, super strong. So, but it's, you know, just creating those opportunities, because in my assumption, we're gonna have kids that have developed patterns as 9th through 11th graders this past year that are now gonna be in, you know, 10 through 12, and they will pick those habits up pretty early in the year, and there will probably already some notification sent by early October, and then we will, in the early notification, also just remind parents of the opportunity to come in, and, you know, and we're not gonna play stump the administrator on what counts and what doesn't count. We just wanna get the information out there that they need to know, and then if anyone needs to meet individually on their situation, obviously that opportunity would be available.
Talk about how you meet with this, all students, though, the first week of school.
Yep, and we do every year we have class meetings, and we have them within the first week of school that lays out kind of anything new and different for that school year, but also refreshing their memories on expectations that we have for them. And it's very much tied to our student handbook and then just daily routines at the high school, middle school. And so we meet with 9th grade, 10th grade, 11th grade, 12th grade, all individually, typically the second, third day of school. And this will be, you know, very highly discussed, but also we're very much aware that the students are very concerned about who's dating whom after the summer and what they're wearing, and we sound like the Charlie Brown teacher at times, but we do have, I do make a slideshow that I share with the students then through their Google email account, so they can see what we talked about and review it, and it's usually on the website also for a number of weeks after those meetings, so just to kind of, you know, keep the communication coming at them, and what they're choosing to digest and hold on to and apply is, you know, it's kind of on them at a certain point too.
Other questions, discussion about the, specifically this attendance expectation or other?
I have a couple, and first is that this is gonna be a major impact, because it's gonna affect a third, so that means a third of our parents at the high school is gonna impact. And one of the concerns I have is when I read through the policy and maybe made some changes, it is, what it talks about on the policy itself is it goes into the truancy guidelines, which when you look at our truancy guidelines, goes into our 503, which is unexcused. It talks about unexcused absences. And then it talks about our discipline policy. And so when you go through that, you look at your truancy. So detention or talking about, going through the courts now for a parent that calls in, that I have some concern about. And the reason I have concern about it is it's not, I had to dig, and it's not clearly laid out where it says that this is the way that, it's different if it says that, at 10 or at 5, the school district will notify you. At 8, you will have to file a grievance. So for a parent to say, hey, this is what's going on, these have been legit, because if anybody's familiar with the system, you call in, you say your name, you say who you're calling in for your son or daughter, the grade they're in, the reason they're missing, and then you can also say, give a telephone number and say, hey, you can call me back if you have a question. And I know there's a lot, so.
Oh, hundreds a day.
So I understand there's an issue, so I'm not disputing the issue. What I am concerned about is the process for parents, that this is a total change, that now my call is no longer good enough at 10, after 10.
And that, obviously,
And then-
honestly, Matt was always there when we went to the county truancy meetings. 10 was always the magic number.
Okay, might have been there, but it wasn't enforced. So this is a change from, okay, so that's a change from what we currently have been doing to next year. And so that is where my concern comes into as a school board member, is that, okay, we're gonna make this change. Simple meetings does not inform parents that this is a total change. This is a total, it is a big change for parents. Because now you're gonna require them to have documentation. So if my son or daughter's throwing up, it's number 11. Okay, I'm gonna have to go to the doctor to tell them that they're throwing up.
I've had that called 300 times since I started here. My child's thrown up, do you want me to take a picture of it in the toilet and send it to me? And I'm very realistic with parents. I said, listen, you obviously understand now what we're up against. We do not want your sick child at school. You should keep them home if they're throwing up. But now if I got a parent, because the pattern is that parent, they've developed a pattern. So they will call, if they're calling me 8 times over the course of 16 school days and their child is throwing up, I'm gonna say, I'm gonna need a doctor's note now because nobody should be throwing up that much. There's a problem. Because what the parents have figured out, and it's an informed society, that if they call and excuse 105 times over the course of a semester, they never have to go to that county meeting, unless we've really rolled up our sleeves. And we used to enforce the 10 quite strictly until it got the volume got so high that we can't, it's out of control where we can't. When Sarah Campa brings me the list of kids that are at 10 or more, what we actually do is go through and highlight the ones that we really don't have a good idea what's going on, and we start working with those. Some we work with the health office, we have very good information there, and we leave those kids alone. We work with the counseling department, where the counselors have that conversation with kids and parents before we ever send those letters of the 10 or more. So there's about a 4-step filtering process from high school office to nurse's office to counseling office to my office before I sign it. And then not every kid that's hit the 10 has gotten a letter, because we know the extenuating circumstances. We're really trying to focus on those kids that we know are playing the system and trying to work backwards from there, versus the kids that are needing the system to help them stay on track with their schoolwork, even though they're dealing with extenuating circumstances that make it very difficult for them to be in school consistently. And then work on educational planning for those kids, because what we've come to realize is that our teachers, a teacher sees 140 kids a day. And out of the 140 kids a day, maybe 5 to 10% of those kids have a legitimate reason to be gone 15 to 20 times in a semester. We want the teacher to be able to work with those kids because they deserve that teacher's time and attention. It's these other 80 kids that are doing the same thing for no good reason. Now the teacher's saying, how can I help the kids that need help when I've got these other kids straggling in and out trying to make up a test because their parent excused them and their hands are tied? Or they've missed, the lecture, and now it's on the teacher's shoulders to try to make, because the teachers want the kids to do well. And I agree. I know it's going to be, what I said is this did, in year 1 through 4, this doesn't make my life any easier. There's going to be a line of people sitting outside of my office wanting to know why they can't excuse their child for the 13th day. And we'll talk about the rationale as to why they're missing, more specifically in private. Because some parents will call and say, I am not going to send a note from my child's doctor that says they were gone, because that's information that is going to tell you more than we want you to know, because maybe that doctor is, you know, a psychiatrist, or, you know, somebody that they're very private about their, and what we say is that, you know, we're required to know why your child isn't in school, because we're collecting dollars for kids that are here, and if we're excusing them nonstop, we're not really doing our due diligence to do the best we can to educate that child. And I get it. And, you know, you start, we don't want to sit here and look at 10 different stories each day and play yes to you, no to you, yes to you. We just want parents to value the facts, and kids really value being in school. You know, because there are other ways we can work this out too, and that's, I mean, if this goes away, you know, we're gonna, you know, not that's gonna go away, but if the teachers continue to have the obstacles they have to get kids to value their classes, you know, we've talked about, well, that's fine, you know, that the parents can indefinitely excuse until we feel that there's a pattern that we can work through to get them to be more specific with rationale. Now, the teachers can say, that's fine, anytime you miss my class after 5, in my syllabus, it says you've got a required makeup assignment that you have to come and see me about on your own and make it up because you've missed the lecture or the participation conversation or whatever it is. And it makes more work for the teacher on the front end. They like to see more of a happy medium of how do we work together. And there's no simple quick fix. And communication, yep, there's gonna be a parent in December that has no clue that anything's changed, because that's how long it will take some kids to get to 10, and probably very legitimately 10. You know, I did the same thing Dean did. I looked at my 7th grade son's absences because I knew there was a full week that he had missed school, and then there were other odds and ends days, but it would not have been very difficult for me to bring in the number of days during that week that we had seen Dr. Magnuson or one of his associates because of what was going on. And that's all we're asking parents to do is this, if it's getting to be excessive, let us know what's going on versus just the every 3rd day calling in and excusing period 5. Because it's a FIAD class and they don't really need it for their credit, so, because that's what, especially in the spring, we have the really snowball effect of, well, I don't really need that class, and if I miss 10 more days, maybe I'll go from an A- to a B-, but I don't really care. And then they're, you know, doing who knows what, and it creates, you know, it's worse than open lunch, really, because it's all day long versus just a lunch hour. So I would be really excited to find a good way to write it. I haven't shared my revised, because it was over the weekend, with anybody of what another potential way of putting it down would be. It gets a little more specific of what's excused versus what's not excused. You know, and it ties, you know, I pulled them, I looked at 3 online handbooks, you know, kind of off of your request. I looked at Moorhead, Alexandria, and Buffalo, just because those are 3 districts where I have pretty good relationships with administrators, so I figured it would, and they're not tiny schools that are gonna have an easier time of tracking kids down. And so that's where I pulled their verbiage and tied it with a little bit of what, you know, we have talked about, and trying to come up with some sort of at least footing for us to stand on as we move forward in communicating and working with kids and parents. So, and it maybe it extends a little bit of when we print these things, but we do want to do it right. You know, we don't want to throw something out there that we can't enforce, or that puts us in a situation where we've done more harm than good.
And just to follow up on this, and I'm sorry if there are people that have other questions about this, but that's where as a parent, when you're reading through this and you're trying to understand this, is that's where I think right now, I mean, as currently was written, it goes into the truancy, where then it talks all about unexcused, or for unexcused. So does that that mean that that's where I'm at now? So if I've had 10 excused, now it says I'm at 11th, well, where am I at on this unexcused, excused? And I mean, there are teachers already at the high school that have participation points and take away. You know, if you're not there, you don't get the participation points, so you gotta make them up. We do have teachers that do it now at the high school.
Yep.
And I mean, the kids know it. I mean, the students know that, yeah, if I miss it, I'm not getting the participation points. And so there is a cause, benefit, you know, react to what, if you're not there, you're not gonna get the participation points. Understand that part. My concern is, just as a parent, is that, you know, most parents, I would believe, would be honest and say that, hey, if my child's calling me, it's a legit reason why they're calling me. I don't think they're trying to ditch, you know, but maybe there's some that do it. I mean, there's probably are some that might be able to do it. But my biggest thing is just to, understand so a parent knows that at this point, you're gonna get a letter. Or at this point, and not leave it to some will, some won't, because then that's where we get into that. I get concerned with that. I think that, because the unknown is worse for a parent than to know. Okay, I know this is coming, so I know I'm gonna have to talk to an administrator to just make sure that we're on the same page, that I know that my child is gonna be okay. Or these are the reasons behind it. That's where I get a little concerned, and that's all. I understand that, you know, it is an issue, and I understand that teachers need to be able to teach students. If they're not there, it's tough to teach them. And so I understand that part, and I know we have an issue. I just want to make sure that it's clear for parents, because this is it is a change from what we have been doing to a change for parents, and there's going to be a learning curve, and that's part of our responsibility too, is just to make sure that it's reasonable, that it's going to be that it's something that we can make sure we follow through with. And so that's where my concern is, just on that part of it. And I know we have to write it up and stuff. I'm not against necessarily the absences of 10 days. That's fine. I just want to make sure there's something there for parents. I don't have to turn to my discipline policy or my truancy policy to figure out where am I at. I can see it, because there are some policies that a parent could read through and actually see what's going on. So okay, I understand where I'm at. I understand this is, and then just for the district-wise to be able to know too that at this point we have to send a letter, or we should be sending a letter, or at least doing some communication.
I have a quick question, just to clarify. In reading it through the eyes of a parent, under where it says unexcused absences, parents called to notice absences of 10 class periods for any single class is unexcused. Then why does it say underneath it, unexcused absences in excess of 4? Why doesn't that match? That's my question. Like, why wouldn't, because then it starts with all this scary language of you have to meet with the administrator and go to the county and all this, but why does it not say excess of 10 unexcused?
There's 2 different types of absences, well, there's multiple, but excused versus unexcused. And when we take a student to a county truancy hearing with child protection, they won't see a student that has missed unexcused less than 5 typically.
Okay.
If we have a student that has skipped period 1 5 times, parent says, no way, I'm not excusing you. We have consequences disciplinary wise for that and academic, because it's technically unexcused. And so where these two in my administrative head, not my parent head, probably line up is, you've excused your child 10 times, now on the 11th time, if you haven't communicated with us and we've sent you letters and you haven't provided any medical verification or otherwise, now beyond the 10, we'll start to add into the 4.
Okay.
It'll be, and here's the hard part for me personally, is we are into a new student information system. So I can't picture what this is gonna look like in Synergy versus what I know it looks like in Power School.
Right.
So in Power School, if a parent clicks open Power School and they look at, their child and they look at period 3, they're gonna say, they can look right down the line, and I don't know how the parent's view is completely, but they can see the child has missed, English 10A 8 times this semester. They're gonna say 8 times. I know that I called them in 2 or 3 times, and they can go back through and see 3 or 4 X's in there, which they should have known, because we would have also sent home a referral in the mail. But they would start to understand where those numbers make sense. I don't know what Synergy looks like. I'll find out end of July. Because that's, one thing that I've heard from our counseling department, to make sure with our registrar, Kim Dozak, we don't have too many codes out there of, parent excused but school not, unexcused versus, and so we have to align those layers as much as we possibly can without having parents have to, get out their ledger and open up Synergy or whatever their parent portal view is gonna be to say, okay, where are we at here? And that we're not trying to trick anybody into getting to that magic number so that we can hold anything against the child. And what we don't want to do is create a pathway to 87 truancy meetings at the county courthouse. what we want to do is help parents to understand, hey, you know, if your child doesn't have a good reason to be gone from school, really think about why you're calling them in, because it's really valuable for us to have them here, and it's really valuable for them to be here. And, you know, when you're dealing with the volume that we're dealing with right now, yeah, we can't make all those calls in a day, but I think if we start early on, and we'll know the pattern of kids that have already started. And quite honestly, when we sit here on Wednesdays in this room for student assistance team, and these things come up with kids, and you know, we know the kids for the most part that have extenuating circumstances, that are things that are going on, and we are, through our filter system, pretty cautious to not send a letter to a parent who we know has got a student that's going through some traumatic, you know, maybe, because some of these absences, quite honestly, are family member death, okay? Grandma died out in North Dakota, we're gonna be gone for 8 days, because you know, parents are the only living, you know, child of that grandparent, and their kid was close with them, and you know what, we're not gonna send them a letter. Boy, talk about a slap in the face to, if you come home from dealing with that family trauma. And now that kid gets sick later in the year, and we know you know, the parent might say, you know, they threw up, you know, I know we missed 8 days, do I need to bring a doctor's note? No, thank you for calling and communicating with us, that's what we want. It's more specific versus, you know, geez, your child was here periods 1 through 4, they were called in excused 5, 6, and back 7 for their volleyball game. You know, because, you know, they say appointment, which is technically an excuse that they can still participate in an activity. And all of a sudden, that pattern continues beyond volleyball season or whatever, and we develop just some bad habits. But we aren't gonna try to use this in a way to punish or penalize without, you know, going through a due process that allows for that communication to be open, which is one of the, you know, Mr. Monkey's strong cautions to me as we try to wordsmith this was, you know, how do we communicate with our teachers so that we don't have a teacher that maybe innocently misinterprets it as, you know what, you missed my class 11 times, now you get 0 credit for that day, and it was a big test, and now they're maybe gonna be maybe they're a C student that if they're failing that test or not getting any points, they're at an F, and they can't dig out of it. You know, that isn't what we want to do either. We want to say, hey, you've missed it too many times, it's not technically excused, but now what are you going to do as a student to connect with that teacher to say, hey, can I get 80% credit for whatever points I get, so that they're still, because now the next time that kid calls in to miss a test, they're going to know how difficult that was without the proper verification of the absence, if that makes sense. So it is complicated.
Would it be, could you pass out your revised
Yep,
language?
and it's not, you know, probably,
Well, here's what I know, administrative team is meeting at 1:30. I guess, you know, I apologize for bringing a policy decision at the table right here and discuss so much. The key is, we strongly believe we need a change in culture and need something addressed. So what from you as board, what is there an objection to the attendance policy? What would you like to see changed that we could do at our meeting and send out to you? Is there something different that we want to do?
To address your concerns specifically, Matt, if the handbook was more definitive in defining the policy for the parents, like maybe easier to read bullet points that explain the process or something, would that address the, because I think what I heard you saying was the manner in which it's communicated needs to be, have more clarity. Am I?
No, I would agree with you. I just think that it's, anytime you're trying to jump around from different policies to the, you know, you're going from a policy that's from excused to unexcused, because when truancy is about unexcused, and I can definitely see parents being, yes, I agree with, you know, a parent could actually welcome a truancy if they're having a student that's not, they're not excusing their son or daughter is not going to school, they want them in school, that truancy process can help get them into school. I mean, so I can see the benefit of doing that. Okay, so I understand the unexcused part of it. It's just the excused part going from excused to unexcused, and how that, you know, for a parent to not go, okay, now I'm going, so I can have to go to court now, or I have to, okay, and I'm going because I'm calling for my son or daughter, that, you know, and that's where like I said, that's where a little bit more clarity would help a parent.
Here's where the communication process helps us. I didn't mean to omit this earlier, but when we do go to the county truancy meetings, one of the aha moments is that the parents will look at their child and say, see, I can't excuse you anymore. Because at the county truancy meetings, they take that power away from the parent, you know, when we've gotten to a high volume, and usually it is around 10. And so when we have these conversations with parents now, you know, they don't want to say no to their kid, but now we're giving them the power to say, you know what, well, we need something in writing from a doctor if you're going to excuse your child anymore. And that takes the pressure off the parent to, you know, enable their child, because it does give them a little more ground to say, you know what, I can't. You know, you're going to be unexcused, so how can I can't just call in anymore. And that parent then appreciates the fact that they're almost off the hook with their kid, because the way the kids manage their parents in certain dynamics like these is sometimes very interesting to observe and navigate. So in some ways, we're trying to avoid going to the county truancy meeting, but have the same result by handling it here before it gets to be that big of a problem. But in my head, I have, you know, almost like Jesse's flow chart that he sent with school-wide email, you know, where if you send it to this branch, to, you know, with our attendance, how can we create some sort of verbiage and visual to help understand what it is that we're expecting without overcomplicating it, that people just scratch their heads and don't change anything at all until it's too late. So that would be our task here in the short term.
In the interests of time this morning, I'm wondering what we should do at this point. Are we prepared to vote on this and set some expectations of what we want administration to address as the handbook goes out? Or should we table the discussion? What's the thought? Does the board feel like we've had adequate time to review the issue for the purpose of whether this is included or excluded from the student handbook? Any thoughts? We do have a motion on the table. So perhaps we could, absent any other direction, take the vote at this point, and then further clarify, because the vote includes this language in the handbook, but doesn't necessarily include this specific verbiage, and that can be morphed for clarity if we'd like that. So we'll take the vote on the issue of whether or not this language is included, and then we can be more directive.
And are we just voting right now on the issue of excused absence, or this
No,
the whole thing.
The whole thing.
The whole thing. So and I'll be honest, some are very minor changes, which I don't have an issue with minor changes at all as a board member. I just think when we have a major change in policy, and to me I consider this a major change, that I am concerned that even when I read attendance and truancy guidelines, again, I'm not against doing it. What I'm worried about is making sure that it's clear for parents, because it's always the same. I know what the administration's thinking, but does a parent that reads this understand it? In the sense of knowing that they're not, because we do have PSEO students that are coming, that a college class goes late. Call a parent, you know, can excuse me for the next period because I'm not gonna make it. There's just no way I'm gonna make it. So you call. And so that is an excused absence, but it counts towards the 10. So that's where I'm just, again, I am.
But I think, Matt, we need a major change.
I'm not
Yeah,
disagreeing
yeah.
about major change, but I want
Yeah.
clarity for a parent before a policy. This is, when you read this as a parent.
But what you're talking is procedure versus policy. Okay, it's two different things. So when you're talking policy, you're approving 10 absences. You know, you're saying anything more than 10. That's policy. Now procedures, the administration can develop saying, here's what we do. So it's how we administer the policy. So I think we're talking you can approve a policy here, and we can continue to work on the procedures of notifying parents. That's, to me, that's two different things. And so we want to get it in the handbook as clear as we can, policy and procedure, but we can make adjustments as we're moving forward here. So I think that's where we're getting hung up, is on two different things. Is we need a policy, an overview of what the change is, of what the board is going to accept, and then here's the one sheet policy that comes out to the parents. It's going to be mailed to the parents, it's going to be talked to the students, all of those things about if you do this, that. The key is we're thinking of all these exceptions to this. What we're trying to avoid is the parent that calls in and says, I didn't study for my test, so excuse me, and they get by with it. Those are the ones that we're trying to stop. We're not trying to stop the child that is sick, the excuse, there's lots of legitimate excuses. Those are the ones that we're not as worried about those. We're trying to stop, just the rampant calling in and excusing kids for no reason. That's what we're trying to stop here.
Let me ask this question, if we do table it, what effect does it have on you guys moving forward? And how much does it delay you?
It comes back to when do we need to have these things to the printer? That, we work backwards from there.
Our printer is here in-house. We don't, because of the cost, we have to do it internal, and it takes a good chunk of, a couple weeks probably, by running back and forth to the copier to get these done. And that's a cost-saving measure that we do versus sending it out. So that is one of the reasons that we have been starting the practice of trying to finalize it as close to the beginning of summer, so we have adequate time to print it.
We just figure out a way to do it differently. So if you want to table this and approve it at June 26th, we'll figure out a way to print it. But again, how are we going to resolve this then? We'll have to have a meeting to talk just about this then, with the whole board, not just with the policy committee. So, yeah, but we'll figure out how to print it. So don't let that be the stopper. If there's something that you want changed, you want different, administration will make that happen.
Missy, did you have some unasked?
I did. I was going to ask a question about the one at the bottom, the fidget spinners, the nuisance objects. I just wondered if we had, because I know this is completely separate from this, but I just wondered if we had any students that had IEPs that were using those.
That would trump any policy.
Okay, then.
Yep, it would, because that came up in our discussion. It's a great question. It's the kid that walks into a classroom. None of my children have a need for one. All of them have two. When they're saying that they're the Suburban spinning it and I can hear it, that's to me not something that should be going on in a classroom for them.
Right.
Because it's not quiet and uninvasive. So, and we've had some kids that'll say, well, I need this because I have ADHD, and I'll pull up their student information on PowerSchool, and that's not documented. Mm-hmm. It helps us avoid the self-proclaimed need versus the plan written need that kids provide, or their educational plan. Because if it's in their educational plan that they have the appropriate type of device, because there are many different types of approved devices, and if someone comes to an IEP meeting and says this child really benefits from this, they do it under the table, no one knows what's going on, great. That it avoids the kid, well, he gets one, why can't I? Because our policy says you can't, he can. And we don't go into details, but, no, I completely understand that question too.
I believe I'll call for the vote then on the handbook. Unless anyone objects, I'll call for the vote on the handbook modifications.
I think you need to ask, are you talking about the policy then that changes handed out, or are you talking about the original language that was?
I might just explain quick what I had sent that you had seen initially, that I gave Jerry and Elaine, was our previous policy in the handbook, just rewritten with the layers added in about the 10 absences out of a single class period within a term. The second copy that you got today, which does need, I can see one minor change that needs to be made already because of the lack of I did it quickly. This is basically a cut and paste of the 3 school districts that I mentioned, with the only real change being if you look at the first paragraph where it says 3 consecutive days, just about every school district says if your child is gone for 3 consecutive days, we need a note from a doctor or some sort of verification as to why. Because that's putting us in a bad spot, is what they're saying. I added the 10 total days in a term, which that's written incorrectly. We're still talking about 10 out of an individual class, not 10 total days in a term, because you can miss one period one day and a different period the next day, and then the 10 days would add up way too quickly in that respect for the varying reasons. And then I followed what they had written kind of as their step-by-step of what do they do, and they kind of specifically talk about what's excused, where in our policy, we talk about what's not excused. Does that make sense? They kind of flip it the other way. And so I basically cut and pasted it and changed the verbiage to fit what we do here that was, contradictory to what they do there, as far as they might not have a student assistant team, they might have a different name for that, so I changed that. And as I read through it, using Alec, Buffalo, and Moorhead, I felt like it kind of gave us the same type of outcome that we're looking for, is limiting the ability to excessively excuse, but it used some of what they have as far as their bullet points and process, I guess. Because quite honestly, to lay out the county truancy guidelines, and I mean, that's just kind of one of the things that I don't even know where to start, because it's individual to every kid. What the county will view as, it becomes an individualized attendance plan, basically. We try to avoid going there.
So if there was 2 additional weeks, would there be time then to rewrite it?
Absolutely.
Okay. Could I move that we table the adoption of these changes to the parent handbook to the next board meeting?
And is there a second to that motion?
I'll second.
All right. So then procedurally.
I'm just thinking procedurally, do you have to vote on the first one or not? Just making sure that you handled that
Is this
correctly.
withdraw the motion, is that what we have to do?
Well, it's Robert's Rules of Order, and we can follow them, or we can do what makes
Yeah, that's
sense.
kind of true, it's the same thing.
So I'll call for a vote on the first one, and then we'll vote on the table motion. So, first to the motion that was on the table to approve the changes to the handbook as initially distributed. All in favor of approving that, say aye. Opposed, say nay.
Nay.
All right, that motion is defeated. And to the motion to table this discussion until the next board meeting, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say nay. All right, we will resume this. We'll have a little bit more
Okay.
opportunity to review
Yeah,
this.
procedurally, do you want to meet prior to that? Because this is a lengthy discussion. Do we want to set up a meeting to talk about just this handbook? Or are we just going to talk about it at the board meeting? Make the changes that Mr. Tilkey handed out and then send it out to you for your personal review? Or are we?
Yeah, let's start with that, and then see from there. What do you suggest?
I think we can just read it on our own and talk about it at the next board meeting. And not do a separate, that's just my.
Well, we talked about it for almost an hour now, and I guess I'm not,
So,
I don't know.
That's a good idea, to have the new revised wording sent out prior to the next one.
Okay, and then we'll make a determination if we need to meet prior or not.
if the reaction to that is that it's comprehensive and seems like we can move forward, then so be it. And if not, we'll just kind of let the emails generate whether or not we'll call a work session specifically to discuss that. How's that sound?
Okay, so it's helpful though to direct administration, what exactly do you want to see changed or clarified so we get we hit your target?
Right.
And we can do that via email. well, let's do that. If you have
Okay.
input,
Right.
email me and Mr. Mankey and Mr. Tilkey, and in fact, we'll be working on this today.
Yep.
So, yeah. Okay.
All right.
All right. Okay.
That's very
Thank you.
well. And then, noting Ms. Tool has summer school at 8:30. We're gonna jump ahead on our agenda.
Excuse you for that?
We're gonna jump ahead to,
Yeah, it's nice.
item number 10 on our agenda. And propose a motion to, well, it's unusual not to have a presentation first, and we'll start with that. And again, with our time concerns for this morning, so we kind of got backed up a little bit. So, if we could just briefly review, and this is information that should have been there.
In your packet, yeah.
This, I think I left off, this is a proposed itinerary.
Oh, yep,
For
we
the
don't have
6
that.
days.
We
So
don't have an itinerary.
I
Alright.
inadvertently had left that off, but the Area Learning Center is asking for approval of a STEM focused student trip to California next June. And Brooke is here this morning because Brooke has been a driving force to make this happen. So, the experience we had last year when we took students to Washington DC was very positive. And it kind of was catchy to some other students. Brooke did not go to Washington DC, tried to drag her along, but that didn't happen. And so, but when the kids came back, their enthusiasm and excitement really caught on with some other kids. And so Brooke was like, Mrs. Toole, we're gonna go on another trip. You know? Where are we gonna go? So I spoke with a representative from World Strides. World Strides has been around for quite some time, planning student trips. Some of the things that I like about it are, one, the liability insurance is covered. They have night chaperones in the hotel. You have a tour guide that meets you there. Right now, we have 4 staff members, myself, Judah Burlingame, Ethan Johnson, and Joe DeMars, that are planning on participating. As a staff, we decided that the best dates to do this type of travel for 6 days would be outside of the school year. And so, in working with World Strides and their dates for trips, because they combine it, they have to have so many kids participating in order to keep the cost where it's at. So we have the tentative dates of June 9th through the 14th set. And the reason we're here today is because World Strides, if students register by June 16th, they can earn a $120 credit towards the cost of their trip. They have to pay a $50 deposit to register. And so we have our first tentative parent meeting tomorrow evening pending school board approval with parents so that that can get started. This is quite a bit more expensive than going to Washington DC. World Strides has a whole fundraising, they call it a recipe for success, fundraising ideas, plans. They also have a scholarship that students can apply for. I think our students are going to be good candidates for scholarships. I don't think they're full scholarships, they're partial. The students that went to Washington DC, many of them are well versed now in the fundraising process and are ready to get started.
All right. Any, well, we'll take the motion and then we'll see if during the discussion there's any further questions from the board. Is there a motion to approve the Area Learning Center student trip, STEM focused, California, June 9th to 14, 2018?
I move that we approve their request for a STEM-focused trip.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
All right, any discussion, any other questions board members have specifically? Of course, this is us saying that it's okay for the parents to allow their student to go. There's no requirement and there's no, it's just still optional for students, so, based on their parents' desire.
Can I ask just about pricing? Because it seems extremely, in my opinion, high, for $400 a day for them to take this trip. I looked at our Europe trip, and it's $260 a day. I've looked at things, it's about $250 roughly. And I know education tours, and I don't, one for the other, it doesn't matter to me. I mean, I want them to take the trip, so it's not about the trip. The cost of the trip is what I'm concerned about, that we did our due diligence in trying to make sure that this is, I just don't want them to say, here's the cost of it, and it just seems extremely high to me, and I know school trips are expensive, they just usually are, but this one seems just a little bit higher than I would think to California. But did they give you a reason, or did they have an explanation? Because I'm sure you've seen it too, and maybe with the partial scholarships, that's the reason why, but it just seemed that it was, for $400 a day, it just seems.
Well, no, they didn't really give me a specific reason why it was so high, only that there's quite a bit of travel that takes place when you're in California. Because you land in San Francisco, but you're traveling between Monterey and Yosemite. So, I mean, there's quite a bit of travel within that. And that, being said.
San Francisco is just an expensive destination.
That middle school trip that's going to DC was similar, and we had the same concern, and it's very, very high cost. So all of a sudden, these companies have really upped their fees, it seems.
I think insurance is probably part of it. But, for the Europe trip, they are given 2 years to raise that amount of money, because it's 2 years out, and you're only gonna have 1 year to raise, to do that fundraising.
No, we know it's a arduous task. I mean, it's a steep climb to do that fundraising piece. We were fairly successful, we were successful in raising funds for the DC trip, although that was, a fourth of the cost. But I guess I'm confident in the students that, we had 18 students sign up previously and express interest, knowing what the cost was going to be, knowing that they had to put away, what is it? Yeah.
That's without the discounts, without the takeoff from if you sign up ahead of time.
And if as a parent, that's too much money, I say no.
Right.
Then, that's kind of how I see it from the board table.
And you said there's scholarships available for
Right.
some students?
Yes. Yep.
About half the cost, you're saying?
I don't know what the
Oh.
scholarship amount would be. They would apply for that through World Strides. But they are income-based, is what my understanding is.
Looks like a great trip. Do you need extra chaperones?
I know.
Any other questions?
Well, thank you.
All right. All in favor of approving the Area Learning Center student trip, STEM focus for next year, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say nay. All right. We'll have board approval to continue to pursue that. Next is a memorandum of agreement between Lakes Country Service Cooperative and our school district to participate in the bread and bread products program and to purchase these products for the next school year from Beambo Bakeries. Is there a motion to approve that memorandum of agreement?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor of approval, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say nay. All right, that is approved. We have I had presented to us in our packet, and even prior to that, the first reading of our budget for fiscal year 2018 as put together by Business Manager Maston. Is there a motion to approve the first reading of the budget for next year?
No action needed.
Oh, yeah, no action needed.
But we
So,
need to discuss it.
Mark, if you don't mind coming over and just giving us a little bit of additional information in regard to that, I'd be appreciated. And that's correct, we don't take any action today. This is a good opportunity to pepper the business manager with any concerns that you might have.
Well, I'm sure you read fully the 79-page document, so that you're well versed on it. This is the culmination of work that began, of course, way back, well, actually about a year ago. We're going to start dealing with proposed levies and stuff, so. Just going to give you general highlights, knowing that where we're at on time. General highlight is the unappropriated fund balance in the general fund will be just shy of $3 million. That's at 11.1%. Or you experienced board members, you remember that you had an 8% goal, and we achieved that here a little over a year ago. This budget will maintain it at about 11.1. State average is 20, or about 21. There were about $879,000 worth of cuts that were made to get us to this point. Much of that was done through attrition and through the 2% that the state legislature provided. There were also some adjustments made in staffing, obviously, as we're going through an enrollment increase at the elementary. So with that, that's about as brief as I have it right now. Again, this budget would be then approved at the next board meeting if there's any changes. And we already have one change because we did a paraeducator earlier in this meeting, so.
You know, when I was reading the 4 pages of narrative that precede all the numbers, I was very appreciative of that, and I was thinking the journal headline should be "Take Heed." This is us being transparent about our financial status. Not only are there 79 pages of detailed financial data, but also some overview, explanatory overview that really provides a pretty solid picture for someone who's unindoctrinated with how budget language works and everything. It's chewable in that format. So I really appreciate how you've got that extra piece in there.
Okay.
Board members, what other questions? Commentary? Too early in the morning for champagne, 11% is great. But, all right, we'll keep moving then. Thank you, Mr. Maston. Next, we have before us revisions to the current school board policies for the wellness policy and the student code of conduct and discipline policy. These are items we've had an opportunity to review in our board packet. Is there a motion to approve these 2 revisions?
So moved.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
All right. Superintendent, will you
Yep,
give us
I'll review. The student code handbook, the only thing they added was that fidget spinner and the nuisance object, and it becomes a distraction, so that's why it was added. But going to the wellness policy, we're a partnership for health school, and we have a stronger policy than MSBA is using already, their model policy. There are some minor changes that you see in red. So USDA at school breakfast, lunch, and smart snack guidelines, following those. So this is all their recommended language. On the second page, then you flip that over. Number 15 was added that we would participate in available farm to school programs. There happens to be one with the service cooperative. And then on the 2, again, just school breakfast, lunch, and smart snack. A key component in the number 2 in nutrition is marketing and advertising of foods and beverages meet the smart snack guidelines. The big thing that they can't do is, like, if we have a vending machine here, the side can't be skinned with, I'll say Coke, Pepsi, those types of things, and we don't sell those. We have their products here, but we don't sell soda pop in the school. So that's what that means right there. And then physical education and health, their Shape America standards. So those, so really overall, and then the very, very last one is superintendent or designee. We added in with our wellness committee that's sitting out in the hallway right now. A lot of them. So very minor changes. And they actually have a rating. They go through a rubric and give us a score. And this policy is a very strong score that'll keep us in with Partnership for Health and funding through them. So I recommend approval of these minor changes.
discussion? Any questions? Hearing none, all in favor of approving those revisions to the wellness policy and student code of conduct and discipline policy, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say nay. Okay, very well. We have for no action the first reading of the meal account policy, and that has been submitted. And I would just inquire if anyone had any discussion points or questions on that policy.
I had a question on Roman numeral 2, letter G. Why can't a student who qualifies for free and reduced meals, why can't they get a milk with their lunch?
Because the federal government says
Says
no. They're not paying for it. And their understanding is the child should be having the whole meal, not just the milk. And so by purchasing the milk and not eating the rest, they're not getting what the federal government is paid for. And so that's the rationale behind it.
Even if a student has an aversion to that food?
The student would be having to buy the entire meal, take the milk and dump the food, that's their right. But they can't just come up to the line and say, I want a milk, and have it paid for by the federal government.
And that seems more cost effective.
I don't argue that. I'm not saying that it's a logical thing, I'm just saying that's what the rules are.
And then I had a question about Roman numeral 2, letter E, and this is maybe more grammar police, anything, but it says the student meal is less price, and I wonder if there's a better way of saying that? The student meal is a lower price, or?
Well, that can be considered by the policy committee then.
Okay.
Well,
I don't know the whole sentence that you're referring to,
the
but
student meal
yes.
is less price than the
employee
Yep,
meal.
sorry.
Okay,
Lower price, yeah.
Lower price.
We can do that. Yeah, and this one will be brought back on the next meeting but I'd like to go to notification on C. This is the one that we've been talking about. It's on the second page, or the back page, I should say, in C. So the procedures that we came through as we talked with the board is be consistent at all the elementaries. So we're talking about McKinley, Adams, and Cleveland. K4 is what we're talking about for the most part here. So it's $6 remaining. Basically, it's 3 lunches. So we try to get to that 3 lunches. And we're going to go through the methods of phoning, texting, email, notes, all of those things are the first priority. But then when you get down to one meal, then there'll be a different stamp, an apple or something a little cuter than a $sign. And that'll be only used if there's one meal left. And parents, it'll be very clear at open houses that if they want to opt out, they're more than welcome to opt out. So what that does then, it sort of satisfies the one. We've had a lot of people say, please keep the stamp, we use that, and then some don't want the stamp. So this helps satisfy both needs. So, and this is a policy that has to be, federal government is demanding that we have a meal account policy by July 1.
So, on the.
And I might add that this policy must be delivered to parents. It's not simply that you have it, it then also
Yep.
has to be delivered to parents.
Groovy. Okay.
Is the, on number 3A, is that what, but we're not doing that, so what, I'm just wondering, or is that just common that we've had that if student's meal count is less than?
Is that just?
Because it's afterwards, or do we do it at the elementary where it says, the student will be offered an alternative meal consisting of a sandwich and milk?
That's what we put in a policy, that's not exactly what we're doing.
Okay, all
We
right,
do have the Otter Angel account that
Okay.
intercepts.
okay.
And that's been this has been in our policy prior.
Correct.
Yep.
Used to do
So
it.
that's what happened if the Otter Angel account didn't exist.
Correct.
That's what we used to do.
All right. We got that one? Okay. Looking for a motion to approve membership to the Minnesota Rural Education Association. Will someone offer that motion?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
All right, any discussion on that? All in favor of approval, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say nay. All right. Next is a request for approval of a credit card system requirements. Synergy's system is the K-12 payment center, and Affinity is authorized.net. These are changes we need to make to be cohesive with our new student data system, management system. So is there And we'll get just a little bit more information after we get the motion. Is there a motion to approve the credit card system requirements?
So moved.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
All right, thank you. Mark, you want to work us through that?
Yeah, I'm assuming both of these, well, in the case of Synergy, we use another piece of software called Meals Plus. And Meals Plus is the actual one that keeps track of the meal balances. That integrates with Synergy. Synergy does not have a means that really allows parents to find out what their lunch balances are. Neither did Power School. We had to kind of jerry-rig something to make it work. In Synergy's case, they have the software, credit card system called K-12 Payment Center that not only allows parents to make payments, but also to view what their child's balance and what they're eating every day. So that is an enhancement for us. The problem is you gotta have that credit card system in order to make this all happen. So it adds a second credit card system. There is a $2 fee associated with that transaction. We're going to educate parents saying, yes, you can see your information here. There's $2 that you'll have to pay on top if you pay through their system, or use our old RevTrack system, which you'll use for other things, and therefore forego the $2. So we'll have, and then there's a third system that comes in place, and that one is Affinity, and that is a registration software that we are going to use for parents on activities and so forth. So they can enter their data for once, and it goes for many kids, and it allows coaches to have on their phone all the information of the child who's out for that sport. So, but they also have a credit card system for payment of fees, and you have to be a part of that system as well. And so again, we're going to try to educate parents saying that if you go that route, you're going to be paying a fee. If you go through our RevTrack system to make the payment, it's free of charge.
Very well.
Not the fee, but
Yeah,
the credit card charge.
right.
So I'm a little confused. So if they use the RevTrack system, they won't be able to see the balance. But if they go
Correct.
to Synergy, they will be able to see the balance, but they have to pay $2 to put money in their kid's account.
That's correct. They can see it no matter what.
Okay.
But when they come down to making payments, we'll try to work with parents to move them over to the old system to pay. Or they can just say, I'll pay the $2 fee and go for
it. Any other questions? All right. Is there, we'll take a vote then. All in favor of approving the credit card system requirements to work with Synergy, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say nay. All right. And the last item of business for this morning is there a motion to call for bids on the food for the meal program? Did I read that correctly? That's the title of it? Okay. Anyone willing to make that motion?
So moved.
All right, is there a second?
I'll second.
All right, and Mark?
As you know, we have gone through bread bids. We just did that earlier. Next month, you'll do the milk. We're now required to do food as well if we're over 100,000, which we do. Normally, we would go through Lakes Country Service Co-op with this, and but we have found that other vendors are willing to give us the same food for less if we go with them versus through the Lakes Country. So what we're anticipating here is we'll bid this out 3 times per year, and then go from there. The reason 3 times per year is so that we don't have to deal with escalator clauses and how much can go up and down and whatever before price change takes effect.
Great, that'll keep us proactive on monitoring those costs too.
Yes.
Very good. Any other discussion, questions? All in favor for calling for bids on food for meal program, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say nay. All right, we have approved that as well. Our next meeting will be 7:15, Monday, June 26th. Stay tuned to your email, see if we'll be having a work session prior to that to hammer out any other changes to the student handbook policy.
And just, not to belabor, but really the policy part of it, the 10 absences, it's really about clearly communicating to the parents on what's happening.
Right.
That's what you want the administration to do, right?
Right.
And that's lay it out very clearly, this happens, that, okay, if you do this, this happens, if this happens, like that. So we'll be very methodic, bullet points, and probably even have it probably won't be in the student handbook, but a flow chart, if you will,
You know what, that
that will
is
be
well.
handed out to all parents and also that, so, and that, when I was talking about, this is a policy piece, but it's also a procedural piece, and that becomes cumbersome at times, trying to get everything into a handbook like that. So what we'll do is we'll develop those pieces where we're very clear with the policy and then also procedural, those two things, okay?
And I would note too that the student handbook gives an overview for parents, and I have found too that sometimes it's not as fully explained, and you do need to hit the policy, and so that's another, for the full information, so that's another thought is maybe.
And I anticipate this one coming back, when we'll give reports on how it's helped, or do we have to make tweaks to it? Because once you do one policy, we find, oh, didn't think of that, we need to make adjustments here. So I anticipate this will be coming back for review, so, okay,
Good.
we will get that done in 2 years.
Great, thank you. So, is there a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
All in favor of adjourning, say aye. Aye. Opposed, say nay. And
Sorry.
that concludes the meeting today.